Donald Trump appears to have been right about the Democrats, specifically Obama and Clinton, spying on him during and before his presidency. Now, you may remember CNN. I mean, this is just one article from 2020, but I could have pulled dozens and dozens of articles from all of the various left-leaning mainstream outlets.
Isn't it spying on your opposition, which was the whole Watergate scandal?
That's exactly it, yes.
Interesting.
And it was, I believe, one bug in the presidential office.
So one bug was enough to bring down
Nixon, yes. I believe so.
Me.
It may have been a couple, but it was very small scale. And this is not very small scale. And so this is remarkable that, well, we'll go into the media reaction in a minute. So this is just an article from 2020, and I just want to show you the framing from CNN. They say, President Donald Trump says all the time, they spied on my campaign. The phrase is used as a shorthand to encapsulate Trump's grandiose conspiracy theory about the 2016 election. In his view, Obama and Biden abused their powers by ordering U.S. intelligence agencies to spy on Trump's campaign to prevent him from winning. Here's the reality. During the 2016 campaign, Trump aides had extensive contacts with Russian officials and operatives, while the Kremlin was meddling in the US election. This raised alarm. This in 2020, they wrote this, right? Well, we know that's not true, but we'll get to that in a second. This raised alarms in the US intelligence community, so the FBI opened an investigation and utilized routine surveillance methods to find out what was going on. Along the way, the FBI made some serious mistakes, but there's no evidence that Obama or Biden were personally involved in anything. So we know that Obama's FBI spied on Trump. This has been revealed, frankly. The spying began early in 2016 as a robust opposition research tactic of the Hillary Clinton campaign, transformed into an insurance policy to handicap the Trump administration. To be clear, as soon as this Pfizer surveillance warrant was granted, again, just to go back to the CNN framing, routine surveillance, no, this was special surveillance that had to be authorized by a court. This was done under Obama. They had access to the entire Trump campaign. When the details began to trickle in on the full extent of the Obama-Biden-Comey espionage scheme against Trump, the former FBI director provided the most incredulous response. And this is remarkable. You're going to love this. The FBI, the Department of Justice, conducted court-ordered electronic surveillance. I have never thought of that as spying.
You can't be serious.
That's just literally his statement. That's a video of him saying it. I just have never thought of that as spying. Or maybe now's the time that you do start thinking of that as spying, because that's what you were doing. Like, what a ridiculous response. But anyway, right? So we'll go to September 2021, when, of course, we found out that the Russiagate scandal was not just a complete hoax, but something that the Hillary Clinton campaign created in order to try and undermine Donald Trump. As reported by the New York Post, a federal grand jury handed an indictment requested by special counsel John Durham, whose name we'll come back to in a minute, and it's fresh proof that the entire Russiagate scandal was manufactured by Hillary Clinton's campaign. Durham is the Sorry, I thought you were saying.
No.
Durham is the federal prosecutor tasked with investigating the origins of the investigation itself into the Russiagate. So he's investigating what happened there, and is targeting a lawyer called Michael Sussman, who, again, we'll get back to in a minute. And isn't that interesting? Michael Sussman seems a bit mimetic, doesn't he? Very sus. For lying about a client he met when doing this investigation. The FBI later disproved the claim during the endless Russiagate investigation, as a special counsel, Robert Mueller's team, found itself unable to verify anything from the much-hyped allegations of 2 years' work. And so the summary that the New York Post give us is just simply that the Democrats had weaponized the FBI and the intel community for political purposes, all on the basis of a lie.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the fact that this was bad press. Because, of course, it was. The media was talking about nothing else for years.
I mean, they were calling it treason.
Right, but it was the fact that they were able to then bring to bear sort of the eye of Sauron onto the individual members of Trump's team, who they could get handicapped, tied up, and kicked out of office, so that he was left isolated and unable to run the country effectively.
Yeah. Doing everything they could to hamstring his administration in its early years, and before just trying to stop it from even coming about. But yeah, and intimidating people close to him and working with him. And that's not even including the social intimidation. You may remember there being a slew of articles saying I'm a Trump supporter or a person close to the administration in Washington, D.C. I can't get a date. And it's like, yes, there was definitely a deep culture of this. But anyway, so this is important, I think, because it brings us to John Durham's latest filing that Fox have reported on, and seems to be fairly transparently, whereas almost nobody else reported on. So notice this was 3 days ago, but only now, after this has come out, is the, I guess we'll just call them the opposition media, daring to touch it, and you'll see how they're covering this. So Fox have given us quite a lot of good detail that I'll just go through just to summarize it. So Barr just to be clear, though, the origins of the investigation. Bill Barr, former Attorney General, had appointed Durham in 2019 to investigate the origins of the FBI's Russia probe, which is called Crossfire Hurricane, which began in 2016 through the appointment of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. And so Mueller's investigation, of course, found no evidence of criminal activity. And so Durham is essentially cleaning up after this to see what they were doing and why this all came about.
I know I'm slightly sidetracking, but isn't Crossfire Hurricane a very revealing name for this investigation?
It's very interesting, isn't it?
Because, well, there's nothing about Russia that relates really to a crossfire hurricane, but about suppressing a president, for example, with a hurricane of crossfire, I think that would be a very apt name.
I don't know.
Curious.
I don't know how they came to that name. Anyway, so the Clinton campaign, as Fox has titled this, have paid people to infiltrate Trump Tower, White House servers, in order to link Trump to Russia. Durham found. So Durham filed this motion on the 11th of February and focused on potential conflicts of interest related to representation of former Clinton lawyer Michael Sussman, who has been charged with making a false statement to a federal agent. The false statement was that in the indictment, they say that he told then FBI General Counsel James Baker in September 2016, less than 2 months before the election, that he was not doing work for, quote, any client when he requested and held a meeting in which he presented, quote, purported data and white papers that allegedly demonstrated a covert operations channel between the Trump organization Alpha Bank, which has ties to the Kremlin. This was the lie. I mean, obviously there were no ties, but he was claiming he wasn't working for anyone. Well, his finances reveal that he was actually working for the Clintons. Durham's filing said that Sussman's billing records reflect that he repeatedly billed the Clinton campaign for his work on the Russia Bank 1 allegations.
Well, there you have it. That's open and shut, right?
Exactly. That's his.
So I presume he's doing time right now.
Well, this is the accusation that will then go to a court.
Right.
It's all very breaking news.
Okay.
But you wouldn't know from watching the mainstream media. The filing revealed that Sussman and the tech executive met and communicated with another law partner who was serving as general counsel to the Clinton campaign. The ties just keep getting deeper. In connection with these efforts, Tech Executive One, which is this is the organization that did the actual hacking, exploited his access to non-public and or proprietary internet data. Now that's important, non-public or proprietary internet data. The filing states, Tech Executive One also enlisted the assistance of researchers at US-based university who were receiving and analyzing large amounts of internet data in connection with the pending federal government cybersecurity research contract. Quote, Tech Executive One tasked these researchers to mine internet data to establish an inference and a, quote, narrative tying then candidate Trump to Russia, Durham states. In doing so, Tech Executive One indicated that he was seeking to please certain VIPs, referring to individuals at law firm One and the Clinton campaign. This is what Durham has evidence for.
If he can prove that, that's
it seems that he can. He's the person with all the evidence,
right, yeah.
doing the investigation. Tech Executive One and his associates exploited this arrangement by mining the executive office of the President of the United States DNS traffic. So the internet connection in Trump's presidential office was the DNS data was siphoned off of there and sent to parts unknown, a university to various others to go to the Clinton campaign.
That's crazy. That's literally bugging the president. It's a little more sophisticated by the way it works, but that's literally what's happening.
It's way worse than Watergate.
Yeah.
And so they did this for the purpose of gathering derogatory information about Donald Trump. Durham says that the allegations relied in part on the purported DNS traffic that Tech Executive One and others had assembled pertaining to Trump Tower, Donald Trump's New York City apartment building, the executive office of the president, and the aforementioned healthcare provider. This is wild.
Everywhere.
Yes.
It's full spectrum surveillance of the president by the deep state that he has declared himself in opposition to.
Yes.
How interesting.
It's wild that this is the case. And it's not just exploding politics in the United States. Like this is the end of any kind of good faith Republican system.
Yeah.
This is a predatory organization in the deep state that is actively opposing the democratic nature of the United States.
Yeah. Well, they're doing it to protect their democracy.
Well, exactly. So anyway, in Sussman's meeting with the second U.S. government agency, Durham said he provided data which he claimed reflected purportedly suspicious DNS lookups by the entities of Internet Protocol addresses affiliated with a Russian mobile phone provider, and claimed that these lookups demonstrated that Trump or his associates were using supposedly rare Russian-made wireless phones in the vicinity of the White House.
Yeah, what are the chances of that?
But just very tangible stuff.
Yeah.
He used a Russian-made phone. Well, it's definite collusion then, isn't it? But and so Durham says, well, the special counsel's office has identified no support for these allegations. So it's like, okay, so there's no evidence supporting that claim, but Durham does have evidence for his claim. And so naturally, there are Republicans who are like, well, we're expecting a few more indictments from Durham then. Former Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, said that he's expected to see quite a few more indictments to come out of this. This is something that is going to be ongoing for a while, I suspect. And apparently a source familiar with the probe told Fox that there has been much more activity behind the scenes than what has been visible to the public, saying that Durham has done this right and kept it a secret, which is interesting. And so Fox have given us an analysis of their own, which I think is worth going through, because again, we're not experts on this. And there are some quite worrying implications here. And so the first one is that the Biden administration has a clear conflict of interest. The filing implicates current National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He was implicated in this, right? So there is obviously a conflict of interest. So essentially, Jake Sullivan should at the very least be relieved of his position. Sullivan was the last person who should be advising the President of National Security because, I mean, he seems to be a rat. Intelligence agencies can be weaponized for partisan politics. This is what this is proof of. No one can trust the mainstream news outlets who buried this story. Well, yeah, I think we've all come to that conclusion. There is no justice if Clinton and her minions are not held accountable.
Yet again.
Yeah, yet again. I mean, we all know this. The lying was not accidental. No, that's absolutely true. They were lying, and the Clintons team knew they were lying. They knew the Alpha Bank allegations were a red herring, according to Durham's indictment of Sussman. Security clearances are not secure. I mean, if the president of the USA isn't secure from hacking, who is? Yeah. And of course, the Department of Justice is compromised. Analysis by Margot Cleveland, the Federalist, revealed that Durham's filing also highlighted the revolving door that exists between the DC proletariat and government employment. So there are, lots of people milling around in DC who are trying to get into offices, and apparently it's just back and forth. And of course, the media is quite silent on this issue, which is weird, isn't it? I mean, you'd think if the media wasn't, I mean, this is 4 days later.
Oh, they're supposed to be, the fourth estate, holding power to account, speaking truth to power.
I should have got that picture of Hillary Clinton on the plane with all of the press, shouldn't I? They're all drinking champagne and they're whining and dining the press. She flies around the world and it's like, why is the fourth estate not holding power to account?
But it goes back to the segment we did with Josh and I about the civil service, where essentially they believe in the same ideology, which is a new development. So they're on each other's team and they know it.
Yes, that's very much it. And so you get people like former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, Republican National Committee Chairwoman Rona McDaniel, complaining, well, look, you've been telling lies for the last 5 years or so, and this massive bombshell comes out and you're just silent on it, just radio silence. Virtually every baseless Russian collusion allegation against Trump got printed and aired for 4 years. Do you remember the PIS dossier? There's nothing to any of this.
One guy came up with no substantive evidence.
Oh, well, it seems that he was connected to British Steel. He was connected to British intelligence, and it seems that he may have been paid to just fabricate it. But anyway, but of course they're not covering it. And so the New York Times finally felt that, okay, fine, we'll publish something, but you're lying. It's like, right. So a liar is going to call us liars while we're holding the evidence. That's very interesting. And you notice the framing here. Court filings started to furor on right-wing outlets, but their narrative is off track. It's not saying they're wrong. We just don't like the way their narrative is going. The latest alarming claims about spying on Trump appear to be flawed, but the explanation is Byzantine, underlining the challenges for journalists in deciding what merits coverage. It's too difficult for the public to understand that we've corrupted the Republic, so we're not going to bother telling them. New York Times, folks. So they say, the entire narrative appears to be mostly wrong or old news. Is it? Seems to be breaking and accurate. The latest example of the challenge created by a barrage of similar conspiracies to Mr. Trump and his allies. But there is evidence of a conspiracy. Like, there is actual evidence of this. Like, we've got the financial... You paid him. The entire narrative... the press refuses to even mention the major crime that took place, Trump said, which seems to be a true statement up until this point. And he says, well, there are many problems with this, right? For one, not much of this was new. So, it's just old news. Right? Talking about the Yota phones, which are the Russian-made smartphones, that had apparently connected to networks at Trump Tower. It's like, yeah, but we don't know that was Trump. How do you know that wasn't just Russian tourists? You know, we don't know who that was, right? And so they say this, that by Jody Westby and Mark Rash, both lawyers for a Mr. Dagon, who is part of the university that's under allegation. It says, what Trump and some news outlets are saying is wrong. The cybersecurity researchers were investigating malware in the White House, not spying on the Trump campaign. And to our knowledge, all the data they used was non-private DNS data before Trump took office. Well, that's not what Durham said.
Right.
Durham said, while Trump was in office, you were taking private and proprietary DNS data.
Yep.
So they're just lying. Well, to our knowledge, well, then your knowledge is wrong. Your knowledge is insufficient. You're acting as if this is a statement of fact. This is not a statement of fact. This is a statement of untruth. And, of course, the garbage media, just the journalistic rubbish that is produced by a place like the Daily Beast, just as if none of this is true, as if there's nothing important going on here. Fox News goes hog wild with exaggerations about the Durham probe. No, Fox went through with quite a fine-tooth comb and gave us a very clear and concise outline of what happened. And they were very specific, quoting specifically from Durham himself, who's the guy doing the investigation. So I don't really see why you would say that. But they conclude with, regardless of the increasingly fact-free nature of their spin, it doesn't appear that Fox News is going to slow down with its Trump was right coverage any soon. You liars. You're just lying. You're lying to the public. You're flat out lying. And then Mother Jones, of all places, why Mother Jones? What the hell are you doing publishing articles like this? Is John Durham deliberately stoking right-wing conspiracy theories? We can go to the next one, John. What are you talking about? You're a liar. You're just... His latest filing is fueling Trumpian disinformation. It's not disinformation, but it's true. You're the liars. It's disgusting watching you lie. But look at this. All this hyperbolic harumphing, call it disinformation, arises from imprecision and perhaps false information in Durham's filing. You mean, I don't like it, it doesn't agree with the narrative we've already set out. And despite the fact that the facts rebuke what you're saying, you're going to commit to your lie in the face of what's true. Very interesting. And so, yeah, we'll leave that there. That more is going to come of this, of course, in the future. And I do suggest that you actually follow media outlets that are going to report on this with some degree of honesty.
Yeah, there just seems like there's so much of a conflict of interest here that it's laughable trying to rely on CNN or New York Times for accurate information at all.
And they're so committed to the lie, if they back down on any part of it, then the whole thing unravels. So everything, the guy who's doing the investigation, who's got the receipts, he's literally got, well, you paid for this, you got this private DNS information, you put all of this together and you lied about that as well. And they're just like, no. All that's a lie. Don't worry about the facts. We've got this narrative that we've committed to, and we're just going to assume you will continue to believe us. It's awful.
Amazing, the arrogance of it.
Absolutely awful.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the book club me and Carl did together on Active Measures, which is a book documenting some of the autistic weirdness that the Soviets and the CIA did to each other throughout the Cold War. But if you'd like to follow me on Getter as well, you can follow at Getter_Callum. Thank you and goodbye.